A massive fire broke out on the evening of 12th of June at Satpura Bhawan in Bhopal's Arera Hills area, a prominent building that houses Madhya Pradesh government offices. The fire began on the third floor of the building at around 4 p.m. yesterday. And by the time it was being doused, the blaze had spread to the 6th floor, destroying everything that came in its way. Fortunately, there were no human casualties. Now, this is a disaster waiting to happen. That nightmare we all have imagined, remember? No fire safety measures in old buildings, and worse, the fire brigade arriving way after the fire broke out. Here's a report on the tragedy.
दरअसल इस सतपुड़ा भवन से अब हम आपको दूरी दिखाने जा रहे हैं कि फायर ब्रिगेड का जो ऑफिस है उसकी दूरी कितनी है। महज 2 से 3 मिनट का ये फासला रहा होगा और वही दिखाने की हम आपको कोशिश करते हैं कि जब आग लगी आधे घंटे बाद अगर फायर ब्रिगेड की गाड़ी आती है तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितना इसमें समय लग सकता है। तो इस सतपुड़ा भवन से यहाँ से हम समय शुरू करते हैं और पहुँचते हैं कि आखिरकार कितना समय फायर ब्रिगेड के ऑफिस पहुंचने में लगता है। क्योंकि सतपुड़ा भवन वल्लभ भवन शहर के बीचों बीच है। जितने तमाम बड़े ऑफिसेस हैं फायर ब्रिगेड के, अगर आप ऑफिस देखेंगे, देखिए कोई जंगल में या गांव में शहर के बाहर आग नहीं लगी थी कि उस पर काबू नहीं पाया जा सका और 14 घंटे लग गए। सरकार बड़ी बड़ी बातें करती है। दूसरी तरफ अगर आप देखें तो पिछले वर्ष हमीदी अस्पताल में भी आग लगी थी और उस वक्त 16 मासूम बच्चों की मौत हो गई थी। उसके बाद भी सरकार ने कहा था कि हम इससे लेकर रिव्यू कर रहे हैं। तमाम तरह के फायर ऑडिट जो है अस्पतालों में और ऑफिसों दफ्तरों में करवाए जा रहे हैं। तो ये अब आप देख रहे हैं कि कितनी देर का ये रास्ता है। अभी हम देख रहे हैं कि 1 मिनट हमें सतपुड़ा भवन से चलते हुए हुआ है और ये फायर ब्रिगेड का ऑफिस हम यहाँ पर पहुँचने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि कितना नज़दीक ये दफ्तर है फायर ब्रिगेड का। और जब यहाँ से फ़ोन किया गया होगा कि मंत्रालय में आग लगी तो उस समय यहाँ पर क्या कुछ किया जा सकता था, कितनी जल्दी आग पर काबू पाया जा सकता था। जो हम फासला तय कर रहे थे महज 2 मिनट का ये रास्ता इस फायर ब्रिगेड के ऑफिस तक था। और ये जो तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं ये मंत्रालय फायर स्टेशन वल्लभ भवन भोपाल और सतपुड़ा भवन में ही आग लगी है। तो यहाँ से अभी तो आप देख रहे हैं कि जितने भी वाहन है वो पहुँच चुके हैं। हाई टेक्नोलॉजी, काफ़ी महंगे महंगे वाहन मध्य प्रदेश सरकार ने भी खरीदे हैं। तो मुश्किल से हमने देखा कि किस तरह से 2 मिनट में हम यहाँ पर पहुँच गए और सतपुड़ा भवन के 4थे फ्लोर पर आग लगती है और वो फैलते फैलते पूरी बिल्डिंग में कैसे पहुँच जाती है, ये अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है।
Kartikeya, this report actually nails it. You know, like I said, that fire safety is an issue in old buildings, and also look at the fire brigade. It was 2 minutes away, like our colleague said, and still it did not. So many, I'll come to the political slugfest later. But don't you think this is clearly a case of total negligence?
I think, there's another thing to it. Most of our buildings are old. And secondly, if you look at these buildings, most of them are sitting foreigns because the sort of stuff which is kept there, the way the internal structure is organized, we don't have those iron and glass buildings anymore. We have those cement and wood buildings. So if you recall that the fire which took place in the building which is in Khan Market, it became very, very difficult. People just don't understand that the fire which took place there spread internally so fast because most of the Indian buildings they're like updated every year at the cost of the infrastructure itself. So it becomes very, very problematic. So the buildings become forensics for simple reason because you have thousands of wires there, you got thousands of flammable material there. There is no spacing within the buildings whereby a fire can be stopped in a section. It's like a maze in itself. You take any building built in 70s in Delhi.
Right. Government offices.
Government offices. And the end result would be this.
Yeah, but someone very young in our newsroom was asking me, ma'am, why is it that they can't digitize all these files? I mean, you can lose. Remember when that whole flood happened in Mumbai, a lot of people lost everything. Their dastavez, I remember Yash Chopra saying at that time he was alive. He said, I have lost old letters from my friends. I've lost old tapes, everything has gone. So passports were gone. So they were saying, why don't we digitize? So do you think that that is one way of looking at it? Because you see, if this happens, they said there was a short circuit. Now, of course, investigations will go on. But do you think they are really not prepared? I mean, what is this? Look at those flames licking the building clean.
I would say, apart from the fact that the vans didn't reach on time, apart from the fact that response was slow, I again and again, because 20-25 years of reporting, I have realized the way we organize. Look at Shastri Bhawan, look at Udyog Bhawan, even the second part of Nirman Bhavan.
Yeah.
Tell me, how are they organized internally?
They are
Tell me how much material that is used in those internal corridors in case there is a fire. Where will people go? And the reason why I use the word forensic, you look at the wirings which I have done, those are not the original wiring, those are additional wirings. In most of these Sarkari buildings, we have these additional wirings in place, and that is where the problem is.
Have you been to this building?
I have not been to this building, but I can really understand why the fire spread. For one simple reason, the fire spread because the buildings have been made, used, sustained in a very, very uncreative, in a very fire-friendly way. They should be fire unfriendly. People make sure that they use fire unfriendly material. Even Indian trains, they publicize that after so many fire accidents, the material they use to build bunks are sort of fire resistant.
Yeah.
So we don't have those measures in place. It's a populous country. People say, "Arey, paisa kahan se aayega?" How much the government can spend. It's not a government with a lot of money. But then this is what happens in it.
And also the worst thing is to do politics over it. Just listen to what Kamal Nath has said, Kartikeya, and I'll come back to you. Time to kind of really do tu मैं on a fire tragedy.
ये एक और भ्रष्टाचार का उदाहरण है। ये क्या आग लगी या आग लगाई गई? प्रश्न ये है, किस तरह 12,000 फाइल, अभी तक तो बोला है कि 12,000 फाइलें जली हैं, पता नहीं कितने हज़ारों फाइल जली हैं, उसका क्या लक्ष्य था, क्या उद्देश्य था? ये एक बहुत बड़ा भ्रष्टाचार का मामला है और इसमें पूरी जांच होनी चाहिए, स्वतंत्र एजेंसी से जांच होनी चाहिए।
Kartikeya, tell me something. Of course, investigations will take place. But don't you think it is politically very juvenile and rather petty to say कि ये आग लगाई गई? I mean, you cannot smell conspiracy in everything, for God's sake. I mean, this is Bhopal. It belongs to Kamal Nath or the Congress party as much as it does to Mr. Chauhan.
More than that, it just goes on to show that they haven't upgraded the structure. You see, if you look at the buildings in the West, France, these are old cities. How many fires like that happened? The fire last time there was a fire in the church. There was a national outcry in France. When there was a famous fire in Madrid, it was a national outcry. A very famous building was burned. Our issue is that most of our buildings, bigger buildings, were built in late 60s and early 70s.
Right.
Early 70s. At that point of time, the sort of fire sensibility was not there, that what will happen if there's a big fire. You look at the spread of the fire, more than the fire itself, that's the word I'm using, inflammable material.
Yeah.
This is the inflammable material.
जो कहते हैं धू-धू करके जल रहा है।
धू-धू करके जल रहा है, वो धू-धू करके इसलिए जल रहा है क्योंकि आपने उस तरह का सामान वहाँ रखा हुआ है।
बिल्कुल।
So these are the visuals tell the story. Visual tell the story that the material which has been kept there is like that. The new NMC building which is built for journalists, it's not like that. It's built very differently. If you go inside, there's an open space inside. Very little of wood material is used. It's glass. You know that if there's a fire, it's not going to spread in one go throughout the building. It is semicircular. One part is disconnected from the other.
And thank God there were no human casualties. I mean, I was fearing. It's been doused apparently almost today. But don't you think 24 hours, I mean, not 24, more than 24 hours to douse it, so you can know the extent of fire there?
I think apart from the extent of fire, we have to understand how quickly it spread. One. Secondly, the fire response was weak. Third, there has to be a fire audit. You have fire audits of building in national and state capitals. I would like to know, when was this building audited for fire? And I'm telling you, you'll be surprised, Sudha.
20-25 years तो हो ही गए होंगे.
I'll tell you, you'll be surprised क्योंकि fire audit तो हो ही नहीं सकता. Even in Indian Parliament, the older Parliament, we have created buildings inside buildings. These buildings must be used in double its capacity. Like if you look at the reorganization of older Parliament building, you will find कि 100 लोगों की जगह पे 250 काम कर रहे हैं. This is what is happening in buildings like these. 100 लोगों की जगह पे 250 लोग काम कर रहे हैं. Go to Shastri Bhawan, Nirman Bhawan.
Yes. But how come the new passport office, if you talk about old buildings in Delhi, that is pretty well organized? I think, it's a new building, I think, and they have done, a relatively good job. Because see, at the end of the day, thank God for small mercies that no human casualties. But all those files which have been destroyed, can you imagine that it's so many years? You say कितने साल हो गए होंगे फायर ऑडिट करके, उसमें कितनी हिस्ट्री होगी, कितने सारे दस्तावेज होंगे जो बिल्कुल ruin हो गए.
Apart from दस्तावेज which got ruined, my only limited point in context of this building is that how many audits do we undertake in state capitals? That's number one. Are we overutilizing these buildings? Point number two. And third, do we upgrade our buildings? Do we upgrade our structure? Do we understand that over-wiring a building is a hazard in itself? How much asbestos have we used in a building? What sort of wood have we created? Cheap plywood is used. आपने तो अंत्येष्टि का सामान जोड़ रखा है.
And the thing is that what you said, that really went through my heart, But the point is that instead of looking at what you said, fire audit किया कि नहीं किया, upgrade किया कि नहीं किया, I think Kartikeya, it's going to become more of a political slugfest. Tonight, there are channels who are going to scream at each other, which you and I do not do, and tomorrow also the papers are going to be full of it, which I think is the wrong way to go. Would you agree?
Absolutely, it's a wrong way to go. The first, if there's a fire, the first thing is what was the prompt response. The second thing was which section it started and where was it contained. And thirdly, why did it spread like that? Someone has to explain why did the fire spread like that. These are the visuals which people are witnessing. It's like a perverse, visceral pleasure when people watch things on TV or on YouTube. Acha, badi achhi aa gayi. These videos trend, but the fact of the matter is, it shows a human error. There is no error in building.
No, that's
building
what I
didn't
said.
make
It's
itself.
man-made.
It's a man-made error.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Apart from that, the sort of pollution this has done is not being accounted for because most of these buildings use asbestos. Asbestos is cancerous. Most of the temporary partition which is there in these sarkari buildings is asbestos.
Right.
And asbestos is cancerous.
Right, absolutely. And this is what, like you rightly said, that the points that you have really highlighted, I don't think they are really going to talk about that. They are only going to talk about.
Because they will be embarrassing, Sudha.
I know, but the kind of fire that it has created, they should be more proactive. People are not fools, Kartikeya. They will understand किसने उठ के काम किया और किसने सिर्फ तहमत लगाई एक दूसरे के ऊपर.
Absolutely, yes. And it is also about maintenance of a building. If you say that there was a short circuit, why did the short circuit happen?
Exactly.
Was there an overload? 10 की जगह क्या 100 लोग इस्तेमाल कर रहे थे? वायरिंग कैसे हुई थी? ये चीजें देखी हैं रिपोर्टिंग में ना, इसलिए मैं कह सकता हूँ.